Welcome to the Be a Human in Business show with your hosts, Tracy Borison, founder and personal branding coach at TLB Coaching and Events, Tara Argo, founder and relationship strategist at Argo Operations, Tawana Taylor, founder and project management consultant at Bootstrap Dreams, Debbie Aquara, founder and principal consultant at Niche Customer Experience Consulting Firm. Let's start the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Be a Human in Business show. We're really excited to talk to you guys today about work-life blend. And unfortunately, we don't have our lovely Debbie with here. Well, I can't talk today. We don't have our lovely Debbie here with us today. So we love you, Debbie. We'll see you next time. I can't do this. Everybody's been making me do this for like the last week, and I feel like my heart's a weird shape. Anyway.
Well, what about the other day? Tracy goes, I think that I should ask Zoom if they can make the hearts come out of my eyes.
Hearts come out of my eyes, right? They have like the Zoom makeup. So I feel like, and they have the heart celebration thing, but I feel like they could make them come out of my eyes and like go to another person. So if anybody who's watching this works for Zoom, just try to do that because that would be awesome.
You want more effects.
Right. If we're going to be virtual, then we might as well make it cartoony because that's what's going to make it fun.
That's virtual.
All right. With that interesting intro, we're talking about work-life blend today. And so a lot of people talk about the concept of work-life balance. Balance being a concept of you have to trade something to get something else. And I became familiar with the term work-life blend actually through one of my clients, Tim Sweet. So you can look him up on LinkedIn. He does a lot of leadership coaching and things like that. And he likes to talk about work-life blend and how that comes together into a wholeness or completeness instead of being a balance that you have to trade. So we're going to talk about that today, what that looks like from our perspective, some of the different challenges that we've seen over the last little bit, some things that are maybe different for entrepreneurs versus people in corporate. Probably our own corporate experience is going to sneak in there because we can't help it. We're going to talk about work-life blend today. So who wants to start?
Tawana, take us away.
Oh, okay. Hello. So we're in rare form today, people. Hang in there with us. Work-life blend. So, prior to us recording, we of course catch up and have all the good fun that we do and get ready for the show. One thing that immediately comes to mind is permission. Permission, right? And here comes my rogueness. So I'm not really asking my employer or whomever else the permission to be off. I am respectful and give courtesy notice, right? But if I've done everything that I was required to do, if I have underpromised and over-delivered, if I have coordinated with team members to ensure coverage was provided, and I have time in the bank, I'm going to use it, right? Within reason, within what is going to be beneficial for me to continue to show up as a person and as an asset, a professional asset to the team, to the company. When I hear stories about employers telling employees who have followed all of the protocol, put in ample notice, and then that time comes near, or it's at that point in time for that employee to take off and they're told you must cancel, that right there, I got a problem with. Because if you're not doing heart transfers, if you're not birthing babies, you're not coming up with a safer version of the vaccination or something, I don't know what you could be doing in your world. But that person, that employee that you're negating, but you're going to want a concession when something happens in your life, Mr. or Mrs. Boss. But that employee that you're negating the opportunity to have some freedom, to have some autonomy, and to use the time that they were in agreement that they'd have to work for you, your company, I have a problem with that. That person should be able to live a life as well. And work is a part of living. It is not the whole living. Now, if a person chooses to make their life that way, that's one thing. But to try to control a person's life, and oh yeah, by the way, I'm a minority. If you can't tell, that's slavery. So let's not do that. Let's be human in business and be willing to ask of people what we're willing to give ourselves. So if you want people to cancel
Boom. Wait just a minute. Wait, say just what you said again.
Be willing to ask of people what you're willing to give yourself.
Exactly. Right? And that is the key. That's the whole key right there. Sorry.
No, that's great. Let's not mow over that, right? So if you're going to ask somebody to cancel their time, you be willing to cancel your time for whatever the team needs when things get to the crunch and more needs to happen than what has happened over time. And you got to meet this deadline and this budget, and that you be willing to show up and stay and do the work and negate yourself the opportunity to live the life outside of the profession that you are pursuing. Are you willing to do that? If you're not, don't ask your employees to do that. That's unreasonable. That is absolutely unreasonable. And personally, it irks me. Hard stop.
I could not tell. That's one is super jacked about this topic. And so one of the contributing factors we were talking about before we started recording was this concept of somebody else paying you to own your time, right? And so I saw this post this week on LinkedIn. Someone in my network had said that her employer said that to her. I pay you enough to own your time. And all of us were like, I'm sorry, what? Like, that's not.
My blood was boiling the moment that you said that, because I thought this, like, where is this
happening? Come out of my cardigan because
well, but here's the other thing, because that person who said that, and this is, so our next episode is we're going to be talking about some toxic leaderships, or maybe have a hint into that today. But like, that guy who was a gentleman, I'm not saying all gentlemen are like this.
Or was he male? Let's say that.
Male, yes, not gentleman.
He would not be expressing himself towards another human that way. So he was male.
Yes. He was a man.
He was male.
And I'm sure he made more than her. In fact, I know he made more than her because he's senior partner and she was not a partner. And he was not going to trade his weekend to do that.
Right.
So this is one of the pieces that we're talking about, and there's really kind of two parts. Well, there's probably lots of things we could talk about in terms of work-life blend, but there is the piece that you need to create, right? So it's actually funny because I'm drinking a smoothie right now. So I'm thinking about a blender. And when I make a smoothie, I put certain ingredients into it, right? And it's the ingredients I want in my blend. Mm-hmm. And when I think about work-life blend, it's the same kind of thing. Like I put my work in, but I also put my life in. And all things that are included in that are like sleeping, getting enough sleep, having time to build relationships with your children, with your spouse, with your friends, right? Like, and doing different parts of work. Like if you do charity work or volunteer work and things like that too, like all of these things are in the blend. And at some point in history, and I don't actually know, I should maybe Google this so I do know, because I talk about it a lot, but like someone decided 40-hour work week. That's how we're going to be like the most productive humans, which is ridiculous because that every person is different and you can't possibly genericize that kind of information. But depending on how you've been raised and whether or not you have that kind of, I'm going to call it a corporate influence. It's not necessarily like just the corporate world, but I even see a lot of entrepreneurs enter the entrepreneurial space, and this is what they think work is, right?
Yep. I was thinking like even the imbalance that comes with entrepreneurship, thinking that you have to hustle and grind to be successful. And well, yes, there's a lot of work to be done. And when you're starting out, unless you have a lot of capital up front to outsource it right away, there's a lot that you end up doing. However, we have to be conscious and cognizant that We are human, not machines. And if we do not pause for rest, pause for nourishment, pause for mobility, we will not reach the end goal as to why, not what we are doing in entrepreneurship, but as to why we pursued the journey. Back to you, Tracy.
Can I say something while you're saying
Yes.
that too? This brings up something to me too.
Sarah, come on.
No, what brings it up for me is that why are we not helping our employees, our teammates learn what a work-life blend is to begin with? Because I know I was never taught that. I don't know if the rest of you guys were, but that's another thing that we're kind of not taught. It's just like when you go into leadership. I came out of corporate, but in corporate, no one tells you how to be a good leader. Thankfully, I had really great mentors. And I knew exactly what I didn't want to be, right? Like I had followed these people. I had people that were above me and I was like, this is terrible. That's one thing. And I would write it down. I would say, don't want to do this. Don't want to do this as soon as I get to that position. But we're not taught the work-life blend. And so I still, I'm 8 months out of corporate and I'm still trying to understand and trying to mold what works, because in my mind, was taught my whole life, you just work really hard and that's like all you do. And I still have that mentality. I'm still capturing those thoughts and saying, Tara, like that didn't even make sense. Like let's take a step back. So I would really challenge business owners, corporate, whoever you are, to make sure that you're talking about that and look to the other countries. I know Sweden, and there was another country that recently passed a bill that was talking about that work-life blend, and they are really strict. Like you can only work this many hours. We're not doing that in America. I don't know what we're doing, but we're not doing that. And so if there are things that we could be doing better as a culture and as a society, we need to be moving forward and we need to be taking that into consideration. I digress. Sorry.
No, that's a good point. And it was interesting for me because since I had this concept coming out of corporate that I could work half the amount of time and make the same amount of money. This is my goal when I left corporate. And half the amount of time for me is 25 hours a week. And I would always tell people I work part-time, I work part-time, I work part-time. And last week I was like, what is that? What is that? So now I tell people I work full-time, 25 hours a week.
Your full-time?
25. Yeah, that's my full-time, because based on what I want my work-life blend to look like, that's full-time. Yeah. And that's all I want. And that's all I need. And I have created a business around that. But if you don't know, then you are always trading that, right? I'm like, well, full-time people work 40 hours a week, but like, I'm not in corporate anymore, right? I haven't been contracted to 25 hours a week. In fact, mostly, it's actually funny because I was working with a coach on this about like what percentage of your quote working time is like paid working time. And I was like, oh, like 6%. And he is like, oh, on average it's like 25%. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm more effective with my 6% of time. But this is the thing we're not having conversations about either. But like, we're just like, work more, work more, work more. Like, remember that whole work smarter, not harder thing, which even like I've had a lot of people tell me in my life in corporate, right? Like we just work smarter, not harder. And then what you want me to do. So first of all, you want me to work smarter, which means I'm more effective for you. And then you also want me to work harder. So now how much are you getting? Because I'm doing both of those things. And what do I get? Like, what do I get as my trade? Most people aren't even getting money as their trade, right? And some people in the like kind of higher financial, big law fields, like, okay, those guys, I get it. They are getting paid a lot of money, right? Like they get paid a lot of money, but they get paid a lot of money for the value that they generate. Right.
That's
not
right.
For like the hours that they work.
Yeah, it's not for their time. We all have 24 hours. That's it. Mm-hmm. Every single person has 24 hours. The difference in pay, one came from someone's opinion on what positions were more valuable or not, and then came from areas of expertise, right? So you're paying for what they bring, not for their presence and the hours, the minutes, the seconds that they spend with you. And that is why in entrepreneurship, right, the income limits really aren't there because you're paying for the value. You're paying for a greater return on your experience faster even. So in entrepreneurship, we aren't trading time for dollars, you know, and the sooner we are able to embrace that and step into that, the less struggle and hustle there is, on top of all the great things that, you know, you teach and show people, you know, Tracy, as far as like personal branding and getting the right message so that the people that you are meant to serve can receive it and see you as, you know, the solution. So Tara, you hit on something that resonated with me and I actually learned recently, talking about like cultures and how they, you know, create work-life balance for their citizens or for their people, their natives, their, you know, their residents, communities. And Colorado actually does that because their seasons are really, you know, wonky, and they don't have spring, summer for really, really long. When spring hits, there is a work culture in the state that shifts to like 4-day weeks, so that families have more time to go camping and exploring and, you know, spend time with family and do the fun school activities and sports and stuff, because you only got a small window of time. And so it can happen.
I love that.
It can happen. It can exist. More people have to be willing to accept it. More leaders have to be willing to demonstrate it. And more employees have to be willing to, this is what I'm doing, right? This is what I'm doing. What do you need from me before this happens? But this is what I'm doing. And it's fair. It's fair to put in, right, the request, because that's what the whole agreement is. For these, now for this amount of time, this is what you do, and this is what everybody that accepts, offers a job and accepts it. You're going into agreement to say, this is what I'm getting for that time. But then you also have that time that is saying, hey, if during this time you need that, it's available. There should be no crap when the person taps into their other bank of time, right? And so, yes, I understand that, you know, in settings where when you are, you know, you are under agreement to work a certain amount of time, expecting people to do more than that time without considering that they are human and have lives is absolutely unreasonable. And that's more of what needs to happen, and more, you know, people need to not be afraid to tap into what belongs to them, right? That time off, rest time, time to enjoy life, whatever that's defined it as, you know, whether you're a parent or not. You have a mother, you may have a father, you may have a sibling, you may have cousins, you may have pets. You may just want to be outside. You do that. You do that. Don't be afraid to put in, right, the information and have the conversation so that you can do that. And if you're with a company that does not appreciate you, the person, I don't care what your position is, think about you and the value that you have to live. It absolutely hurts my heart to see people go up to retirement and finally think they're going to take their time, and then they're dead shortly after they retire because of all the ailments that they have accrued. You know, during the time that
it's a problem. It is a cultural problem, because we think that that's the only way it is. Like, we have to work really, really hard our entire lives, 50 years or whatever. You're right. And they get up to retirement age, and then it's like, I can't enjoy anything because I'm too sickly. Or just, I mean, absolutely fall over after, like, they walk out.
But this is not being a human.
No.
Right? Like, it's
absolutely not.
Big organizations treating people like resources, right? Like, I need more pens, so I'm just gonna go get more pens, right? Like, okay,
it's more about the money, and than it is. It's about the capital versus the people.
And Post-it notes as you want, right? But people aren't that. People aren't a resource like that. Right?
That's right. That's right.
And it's also, it's not. It needs to be renewed, right? Like, this is the thing I don't understand. Like, don't we want our people to be the most productive people? Most productive people get their work done faster. They get it done with a better quality, and they get to have the blend that they want in their lives. So, like,
it's a mindset change, though.
It is.
That's what's going to require at a leadership level. right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have
Well,
to
and it,
understand that they can get more out of their employees if
you're
they would take that into consideration, but they're not willing to do that a lot of the time.
you're flexible. And something else popped up, Tara, as you were talking, and it was keyed up. We spend time developing, the team or the people or the employees or the contractors or whatever, right? Again, whatever category of function you want to put them in, but who's developing the leaders so that the leaders can be the demonstration that the people they're supporting need? Because leadership is service, right? It's not a title. It's not a position. It's not even a pay grade. You can have someone be at the line level, the field staff level, and be an amazing leader. And you can have someone being at the absolute highest position in the company and be a horrible manager, because leadership and management are not synonymous, right? So who is developing people who should be in leadership roles so that they can be a stronger and a real practical demonstration of what you want the teams to be? Same thing for us as entrepreneurs, right? If I ask my customers, my clients for mercy, I can't say you signed the contract, so no, you can't move your appointment, but I want to ask you, hey, I'm running behind. Do you mind starting 15 minutes late? Because stuff happens, right? But then when they have a life situation, you want to hold them to the black and white. Come on. Like, we have things in place so that way if either of us gets fuzzy, we can go back, right? We can go back to the terms. Yet if we are being human and we are showing up to what we each committed to, there's usually no tug of war about what needs to happen and when. You just follow suit. Everyone does their part. If we each do our part, we can have more work-life blend. We can create it, we can foster it, we can even encourage it, right? We can even encourage, you know what, Tara, I know you've got a lot going on, right now in time. And I realize that I've looked over my stuff and I can pick up something. Is there something that I can help you with? Right? We can do more of that in our professionalism or in our personal life, whichever one is needed at that time, because we're fostering, right? We're cultivating the renewal, as it's been expressed. Like, you've got to till the soil to get more harvest the next year, right? We have to be tilled, we have to be renewed, we have to have respite so that we can come back to what's required of us. But if we're constantly just burning the oil and you never get it changed, well, you know what happens in the car? It's going to break down, right? Deferred maintenance leads to major breakdowns, major gaps and cracks in infrastructure, and it costs so much more to replace a resource, if you will, than it does to nurture the one you've got, right? And that's in all areas of life. Mm. Intimate relationships. What's the song? Cheaper to keep her. Right? And it doesn't matter the gender, male, female. Nurture your garden, instead of coveting someone else's, and just really taking time to pause and reflect on what's worth it. Is this job or is this business even? Because I closed a business. This is my second time in entrepreneurship, first time full-time, but I had a business for 8 years, absolutely sustained, absolutely blew my mind, absolutely did things that I never thought I could do. I continued to work full-time though, because the full-time job was my passion. The other job was something I was like, I can do. Jack of all trades, I could do. I got to the place though where I said, is it worth continuing to do? I don't love it anymore. Yeah, I can fulfill the order. I can design the jewelry, no problem. But do I like it? No. Time-wise, is it benefiting? No. We're going to stop now. I'm going to stop now so that I can make myself available for what I want to be pursuing. And we have to ask ourselves, what's worth it? And so what if it goes against society? So what if it doesn't check off other people's boxes? So what if people think you're crazy because it doesn't fit what they would do? It's your life. You've got to choose what's well for you.
This is I mean, like, this is my jam, right? Personal branding. You have to decide what is right for you and then stand up for it. But I do believe that there is an opportunity on the leadership front to be able to support that in people, right? So yes, we can ask ourselves the question, where does my time have the most value? And you have the answer, right? So like, even if someone else asks you it, they don't have the answer for you. You have the answer for you. But there's just so much opportunity for people to treat other people like people and realize that this is a thing, right? Like, all of us value different things in different amounts, and that's our blend, right? So like, some people have, like, I like to have more family, like, in my percentage, in my blend, right? That's really important to me. And I'm not judging someone else if they have a less, if they want a less amount of time, family time, because they do things that make it more impactful when it's in the time. But that's everybody's choice. And unless we have that conversation as a bigger conversation, and leaders are looking at that, employees are looking at that, right? Like, there's a possibility. I had a boss once, and I always thought this was so stupid. He had this rule where everybody, I was young at the time, everybody got 2 weeks of vacation. But if you took 2 weeks of vacation at the same time, you got an extra week. So then you got 3 weeks of vacation. And I was like, at the time, I'm like, why doesn't he just give everybody 3 weeks of vacation? But it's because he knew that people wouldn't take the 3 weeks of vacation. They wouldn't take the 2 weeks, right? You take 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, and it takes 2 weeks to actually rejuvenate my resources. So I want to rejuvenate my resources at least once a year. So you get a bonus week if you take your weeks together. These things seem really simple, but like, of course, everybody's going to do that. Like, why would I not? I get an extra week of vacation. You've actually created an environment that encourages people to do what's good for them. Yeah. And we all, as leaders, have the ability to do that. We all have the ability to ask our spouse, like, what does a break look like for you? How often do you need a break? Maybe it's not the same. I know, like, in relationships too, we have to try and make things 50-50, and it doesn't work, right? Like, it's not a thing. It's a trade, right? Sometimes I need 80, sometimes he needs 80, right? Like, it's not always 50-50.
That's right.
And that's the point.
But not synonymous.
Yeah. But that's the same. This is the blend, right? Like, this is why it's a blend. Yeah. I love the word blend. It just works so well here because everything is a blend.
It does. Tara,
well, no. And what I was going to say too is that for me, you have to be intuitive too, to your partner, to if that's in your personal relationship, in your business, wherever that is, you have to be thinking too, wow, they seem to be a little bit down. Maybe I could, I heard Tawana was saying, you can offer to maybe step in or assist, or it takes being intuitive and knowing what's going on and seeing that. So for me, I think we've got to do a better job from the education front on what a work-life blend is to begin with. And what does that look like for us, right? So Tracy, I know this is your jam. Like, what if I just went to a values workshop this past week, and it was presented to me in a way that I'd never had it presented, right? And I could see a work-life balance, like class, workshop, whatever you want to call it, to help people identify what that even looks like. Because those of us that are coming out of corporate, very difficult for us to understand, because we've been conditioned to know this is the one way, but it's not the one way. So we need somebody to guide us and say, wait, what is right for Tara? What is right for Tawana? What is right for Tracy? What does that look like? How can we do that effectively? And I think that comes from an educational front. So that's really is my 2 cents. And I would say that I could totally see a workshop coming out of this.
Listen, and you spoke, this is a beautiful segue, might I say, like, celebrate yourself, because we can say all day, like, this is what we think, and this is how we feel, and this is our why we are so passionate about it. Someone may be asking themselves, but what do I do? How do I do that? Well, here you go. You're welcome. Commit to it in the plan, right? Commit to it in the plan. So here's that enterprise project consultant coming in, right? If you give yourself permission to plan, understanding a plan is a roadmap, not a guarantee. I'm not talking about you're not guaranteeing people the opportunity to create a blend, we're saying the plan itself isn't a guarantee, because life and external factors are very real. They are often unpredictable and they happen. Okay? We all know the global thing we're living through right now at the time of this recording. Many people did not predict it. Even the conspiracy theorists of conspiracy theorists might have predicted some other things, but not this, right? And so had to find other ways to shift and do business. One thing that doesn't happen often enough, though, as you're making the plan, for those of you who are diligent enough to do so, and if you haven't been, give yourself permission to. It's okay, because you have a destination. The destination doesn't change, but how you get there may. Just because you can do it in 2 days doesn't mean that's all you have to stick to. Give yourself 3, 4. If you really want to have contingency, 5, but that might be just being a little bit too much, right? But if you can say, oh, you know what, I can actually do that in 2 days, schedule for 3. Give yourself a pad, because something may happen. Something may come up. A shift may occur, and you might need that extra time. If you finished early, guess what you can do? Go ahead. If you need more time and you didn't factor it, guess what you just did? Shot yourself in the foot, right? You don't have to be so hardcore that you don't add a contingency in. So if it's going to take you 2 days to do it, it's okay to schedule or allow yourself 3 or 4 days to make sure that you have enough time to reconcile, to proof, to test, to do whatever, to substitute, to do whatever it is that you need to do to make it, because it doesn't change, still happen, right? Have major milestones, but know that you can do little things like that along the way to make sure that you aren't over-promising and under-delivering, or to make sure you are always coming up on the timeline, or you're always coming at, or getting ready to go over budget. Like, you can't time, cost, scope, right? You can't move one without affecting the other. They are not isolated. And that's how you manage reasonable expectations. You can always move ahead of something more quickly than planned, but it is a heck of a lot harder to catch up to something once it's passed. Okay, so how do you do that? Factor it in. What do you need to do? Commit to having it be a part of your plan. And you have alternate paths. There's more than one way to accomplish whatever it is that you intend.
And please do that in your personal life side of your blend as well as your work side of your blend.
Absolutely. That's not
just, I think
exactly
a lot of
what
people,
I'm talking about.
A lot of people hear that and they can hear it in the business sense, right? But I want to encourage people to hear it in the life sense too, right? Like,
agreed.
there's so many things we're always going towards, right? We've got work things we're going towards, we've got life things we're going towards, we've got volunteer things we're going towards, wherever everybody is a multidimensional being. And therefore we're all doing multiple things at the same time. And that is normal. This is normal human behavior. And a lot of these practices, people, not a lot of them are doing it in the work scenario either, but when they are doing it, it's in the work scenario. And they forget that those practices are equally useful in life.
Yep. You're so right.
So one last thing too, Tracy, that this spurred for me. I had read somebody had made a post this week, and it was a mom that I definitely resonated very much with this. But she said, I'm there with my kids, but I'm not present because I have 500 things going on in my head. That happens to me. So it's again about that work-life balance and or not balance, but blend, and how that blends together, because that's something that I've always struggled with too, is knowing that, oh, I can be fully present with my daughter and my husband, but then I feel like then I'm neglecting my work, and vice versa. Whereas I always was very career driven, very much a high achiever. So I neglected my family more. And I hate to say that, but thankfully COVID did help me realize that, as much as I hate that it happened. But at that point I was like, wait a minute, like my blend is completely off. Like I am got one up here and one that's way down here, and I'm trying to learn, and it's really hard. So find people, mentors, people that can hold you accountable too, that can say, hey, wait a minute, are you doing what you say that you're supposed to be doing? Or are you committed? You've committed to this, because it is just difficult. And it really is for some people like myself, whereas I'm there, but am I there? Am I mentally there? Am I really engaging like the way that I want to be? So that would be another thing that I would say, you want to be mindful of as well.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that it's so common, right? Again, this is where the problem with the idea of the trade, right? So like in any given moment, I'm trading life for work. And if I'm going to show up for work, then I traded life. And if I show up for life, then I traded work. But that's not the point. The point is that both of those things can exist in harmony, in a blend that makes sense, right? And I know for me, something that's been really powerful in my entrepreneurial journey is getting clear on that, and that every moment that I spend working doesn't have to feel like a minute I traded with my son. Because I will be honest with you, when I left my corporate job, that's what it felt like. Every single minute of my job felt like a trade. Mm-hmm. And now, because I have the opportunity to show up and make the difference that I want to make, I'm making a difference. That's a different kind of trade, right? It's not a trade. I want to do both of those things. Right. And so I create my blend around being able to do all those things. And I create how I show up based on doing all of those things. And that is, it almost, I believe that it's a recipe, right? So everybody has their own recipe for their own blend. And as soon as you get the recipe right, those feelings of guilt and everything go away, because you didn't trade anything. I didn't have to take all the sugar out of this to make sure that it's a healthy smoothie, right? Like I could put this and this and this, and this is such a delicious life, right? Like that's so good. And there's not enough people who have that. And it is possible when you look at it as a blend. And take that, even if you have a job right now that you're not super psyched about, right? It's like when you put kale in a smoothie, right? Like it's kind of bitter. And then you put something sweet in to balance it out, right? So it's not that nothing bad is ever going to happen in your life. Because like Tawana said, you can't control external factors. No one expected COVID to be a thing, especially for a year plus, right? Like nobody expected that, but that's part of the blend that goes into my smoothie, but it's not the only ingredient. It's only when you only have one thing. I'm just thinking of all the food things right now. So now, like if you're looking at it as a balance, right? Like I have veggies and I have meat. So I could eat all meat or all veggies all the time. And this is not what a healthy diet looks like either, right? Like it's a balance of things. You need protein, you need calcium, you need different things to make you feel healthy. You need different things in your work-life blend to make you feel healthy. And the sooner everybody can come to the realization that can only be defined by them. It can be supported by other people, but it can only be defined by them. And at the end of the day, it's your life. And if you don't care about your blend, it can't be someone else's responsibility to care about your blend.
That's right. That's right. You painted a picture beautifully. If you have to relate to it from a work setting, from a personal life setting, we all eat. We all eat something, we all drink something. And so think of it as a recipe so that you can put in the ingredients that you need that fit your nutrition requirements so that there's sustainability. Because even when I hear the word diet, how many people diet and don't succeed, right? Because it's not sustainable for a long, it'll get you a quick fix, but it's not sustainable, right? So what is the nutrition plan that you need that you can practically grow, and unlearn all the things that were unhealthy so that you can fill the gap now with things that are healthy. So if we're ready, we can do our summary for this session on work-life blend.
It was so good. So many golden nuggets today. And we're also passionate about it because we know, we've been there, we're going through it currently ourselves. So hopefully that helps a lot of you out there.
Yeah. So let's recap. We've talked about in the essence of work-life blend, being willing to ask of others that which you are willing to give yourself. People are not expendable resources, right? They're not widgets. They're not pins, sticky note pads, they're not click up buttons, right? They're humans. Foster a culture of renewal, right? Everything needs refresh. There's a little bit of after a little bit of death comes resurrection. Ask and decide, where does my time have the most value? Tracy has emphasized, you have to answer that, right? It can be supported by others, but that's a question that you have to answer. Commit to having a contingency, right? High achieving visionaries, we love you. We get it. Give yourself some grace, give yourself some space, and recognize that other people may not be able to do it at the same speed or agility, but it doesn't mean that the quality won't be happening. The practice of blend is for personal and professional living and experiences. Unlearn what it means, right, to be enough. Incorporate what it means to be sustainable, and decide what you need to be present. And lastly, both personal and professional can exist in harmony. Work-life blend. What's your recipe? Put it in the comments.
Yes. What's your recipe?
Put it in the
Drop
comments.
it in the comments. We would love to hear that. We can have another lovely conversation about that, because all of ours is different.
Yep.
And side fun fact about recipes, I do this with recipes all the time. Something that doesn't quite, I'm like, I feel like that was too much onion. Maybe next time I make it, I'll just put like a little bit less, right? Like, you can do that.
That's right.
It's your recipe. So you tweak it until you're happy with it.
Recipe.
and it may evolve over time as well.
Yeah,
that's right.
Awesome.
And you may have to reevaluate quite often, but that's okay.
Yes, it is.
Right? It's your life.
Yeah.
You're the only one that can live it.
That's it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening in today. Subscribe if you like this episode.
Yes,
check out some of our other episodes. We have a very exciting guest episode coming up next, so make sure you tune in for that one coming up in the middle of May. And until then, remember, be a human.
Be a human.